You know, I used to think it was a big deal to do a marathon, but about a month ago I found out about Dean Karnazes, and now I know that marathons are for wimps. The stuff this guy does is incredible. He has done a marathon across South Pole and Antarctica. He has run 10 consecutive marathons back-to-back, non-stop. He won the Badwater Relay across Death Valley in 130 degrees heat or 120 degree heat. Continued to the top of Mount Whitney. He has swum across San Francisco Bay, and he is now the author of UltraMarathon Man, Confessions of an All-Night Runner. Pleasure to have you here today, Dean.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
And I just have to say, I am so impressed and amazed by this book. It is just unbelievable.
I'm glad you're using impressed, because I've heard other words used too, yeah.
Oh, you'd be crazy for that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I literally had no idea that this was even physically possible. And I mean, in the past, week that I've been reading this book, or really the past month, as I say, when I first heard about, when I read that you were been on 60 Minutes and found out about your whole story that way, I just didn't think that it could be done. I mean, the first guy who ran the marathon, a Greek, died after the first marathon, 26 miles. And here's the thing, as I told you when I invited you on the show, I like to run a bit, nowhere near in your league. But I'll run an hour a day on the weeknights and then maybe 2 hours a day on the weekends. And people would say to me, oh, Greg, you run so much, you run too much, you're going to overtrain, you're going to kill your knees, kill your joints. But now, you should see me the last few days, I went to the gym at like 11 and 12 o'clock at night, running for an hour. I was tired as hell. I wanted to go home and go to bed. And I thought, it doesn't matter. No matter what I do, Dean does 300 times more than this. I mean...
Well, I hope it's been inspirational. I mean, I would never discount the marathon distance or anyone who's done one, because I think it's remarkable. Just to run at all, run a mile or a 5K or a 10K is fantastic. So I hope that I'm not making a marathon sound trivial, because it's not. It's an incredible accomplishment. And the thing that surprised me about my book is how many people that are just everyday athletes, if you will, the story resonates with them. These are not people that are running hundreds of miles at a time like I am. These are people that are running 2 miles. I mean, I got an email yesterday. I'm a slow, chubby triathlete. I used to run 2 miles a day. After reading your story, now I run 3 miles. Thanks for being an inspiration. So I never thought, my story would resonate with people that aren't doing these extreme events, and it really has.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, literally last night, as I say, at midnight, I was tired. I wanted to go home to bed, and I thought, hell, Dean's probably out there running around all night, probably in his underwear too, but that's another story.
But giving away all my secrets, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you ever run on the treadmill, by the way, or is it always outdoors? Or that's probably too.
Yeah, I probably run on the treadmill once. Actually, I did a fundraiser, and it was actually 24 hours on a treadmill.
Wow, wow.
So I ran about 150 miles.
Yeah, see, I've got music, and, it's a whole different league, Dean, I'm telling you. It's nothing compared with. Okay, but so out of all of these things that you've done, and I couldn't even, there have been so many that you've done, what is the hardest one that you've done that you consider the most challenging?
Well, the Kiel's Badwater Ultramarathon, which is a 135-mile race across Death Valley, is very challenging because it's in July.
Yep.
So it's 126, 127 degrees, and that heat is unfathomable. So you run on the white line because your shoes will literally melt if you run on the asphalt. So
and your shoes did melt the first time,
my shoes
right?
did. I learned the lesson the hard way, yeah. Yeah, and so that presents some unique challenges. I'll never forget, there was a point where I asked my crew, you have a crew vehicle that's kind of handing you things. They roll down the window about that much, then I want the AC to get out and kind of hand you little things out the door. And I remember they handed me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I ran with this thing for a little while, trying to get up enough moisture in my mouth to bite into it. And I bit into it, and it was toasted.
Toast.
And I thought, why would my crew bring a toaster to Death Valley? And I realized the ambient temperature was so hot, it was toasting bread.
Wow.
So I think that's one of the most challenging events. It's it's tagged the world's toughest foot race. So it's it doesn't get much harder than that.
Well, and it's coming from you, and you've done it all. So that I guess, although the one across the South Pole sounded pretty challenging.
Well, that was very dangerous. I mean, there's nothing at the South Pole. I mean, we were 5,000 miles away from humanity, and it was extraordinarily dangerous. I mean, the temperatures were hitting the negative 50 degree Fahrenheit. So it was. Everything was frozen. If you wanted to brush your teeth, you literally had to sleep with your toothpaste in your mummy bag because otherwise it's frozen, like a rock.
Yeah, and just getting there, as you said, was a challenge.
Yeah, just getting there was, and I got stuck there. I mean, imagine that. I was supposed to be back in 12 days. 30 days later, I wandered back to our house. My wife's like, whoa, I'm glad you're alive.
Glad you made it back. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really something. And, of course, then when you got there, you had your little naked run around the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're giving away all my secrets now, yeah.
Hey, secrets, heck, we got a photo of this too, if I could find it here. Or no, where was it? Somewhere I've got the photo. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the South Pole, there's literally a barber pole there.
Here it is. I don't know if you can pull it on that. Maybe we're too far back. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
it's literally a barber pole at the South Pole, and when we finished, one of the other athletes had this wild idea. He said, "Let's run around the world naked." And I said, you know, I'm up for that challenge. I'd love to do it. How are we going to do it, Don? He said, well, you know, there's the South Pole. If we run around it, we're circumnavigating the globe just at the smaller circumference.
wow.
And I said, well, that sounds interesting, but it's minus 40 degrees. You know, he said, don't let anything touch the pole and we'll be fine.
Permanently stuck to the South Pole, literally.
Yeah, so we stripped down and did a quick loop around the world naked. Yeah.
Wow. And that must have just been so damn cold, I can't even believe.
It was a quick loop, yeah. Very quick loop.
Very quick. Well, I believe we have some video here of you out on the trail, which we're going to take a look at and see you doing your thing.
Yeah.
Watch Dean in action.
The challenge of pushing my body as far as it can go and seeing what the limit is. The human body has limitations, but I think the human spirit really can carry you for these longer distances, and that's really what intrigues me, is how far can the human spirit extend.
Karnazes has made people rethink how far the human body can be pushed.
You can't fake your way through 100 miles, so there's always the uncertainty in the back of your mind. What's going to happen? Are you going to cross the finish line that day? And I think that's part of the rush as well, is knowing that you might not make it. That the real challenge is not winning the race, it's just crossing the finish line.
Well, by the way, one thing about that, besides just, you know, the idea of you out there running that, I love the scenery, how beautiful that was. And I thought, wow, he must really have see some really great places doing this.
Part of the reason I do it is the adventure. I mean, it's the experiencing the outdoors, and to me, that's the magic in this whole thing. And you know, a lot of people view running as torture. Like, I got to go for my run, and I haven't run today. And you know, I tell them, you know, go run on a trail, experience the outdoors. I mean, you look around. Have some fun. I mean, don't get on that treadmill. I mean, you know, adventure doesn't take place inside four walls.
Yeah, I'm missing half of it.
Yeah.
Well, and we've also got, if we can zoom in here, this is Dean at the South Pole. I could find that little photo here. I don't know if we can do that. Am I not holding it well? Sorry. Is that?
We don't need to get too close.
Anyway,
on that one.
you know, look, buy the book. Look at the book. There it is. There's Dean at the South Pole, naked at the South Pole. So there you have it. You could do that too. Yeah, if you may not want to do it when you read the book and find out what it took to get there, but again, the whole story of this is amazing to me, because when you really read it's one thing to say it or talk about it, but when you really read what it's like to go through these. Well, for instance, as I say, I love to run. I have fun running. I put on the music, I get into it. But you say, I mean, you don't really have fun running. You say it's enjoyable, but you don't really have fun.
I wouldn't consider running fun, you know, it's not my definition of fun. Yeah.
Because when you're running 100 miles across Death Valley in 120 degrees heat, I mean, you're in pain pretty much the whole time, right?
Well, you're going through highs and lows. I mean, you experience tremendous pain, yeah, and then you'll bounce back and you'll have a real good high, and then you'll drop back down into a low. But yeah, it's you know, the one thing I really enjoy about these long races is that, you know, the rules of engagement are clear. I mean, although it's daunting to run 135 miles, at least you know what's expected of you. I mean, life, you know, is ambiguous and the rules change. With these races, you know, there's a starting point and there's an ending point. You know, you make it from the start to the finish, you accomplish your goal. You don't, you fail. It's pretty black and white. So,
and you had some quotes in the book to that point about somebody saying, you know, that the games are like
we're most comfortable in our games, yeah, because we know what's expected of us, yeah.
Well, again, the why of it, although a lot of people say why, you know, to me, in a way, that's not the hard part to understand, because although you do dwell into that, but because I can kind of understand, you know, the challenge or the thrill of it or the adventure, you know, whatever, but just the how of it is what I think is so amazing, because I think, okay, so great, you want to do it, but how in the hell do you?
Well, you know, I tell people, running 200 miles is just like running 2 miles. It just takes about 50 hours longer.
50 hours, yeah, and that extra 48 hours.
You just put one foot in front of the other, and you just keep going, and don't stop till you either cross the finish line or black out. I mean.
Okay, but I want to get into the specifics here.
Sure.
Okay, so you have 4.8% body fat.
Yeah, don't have a lot of fat to shed, yeah.
Okay, I definitely need to get on that trail. Okay, that alone, got to get ready for Greece. I told you I'm going on vacation to Greece. Got to get ready for the beach. Your resting heart rate is 30?
It's around 40.
40, okay.
If I have some good coffee, it goes up a little bit.
40.
Yeah.
And you said that's what about Lance Armstrong's rate, I think.
Yeah, Lance I think is 38, 39. Yeah, so it's pretty comparable.
I think mine's maybe 80 or something when I have my blood pressure taken. So, but I mean, so you're in incredible shape.
Well, yeah, I am, and they say one of the best things you can do as long distance runners is choose your parents well.
Wow.
I think genetics plays a big.
Thank your father over there.
Yeah. Genetics plays a big part. I mean, both with your structure, your biomechanics, your alignment, as well as your physiological markers that you refer to, your blood pressure, your heart rate, your resting heart rate, there's a thing called the lactic acid threshold, so the threshold at which you can push your body before you start building up toxins. A lot of that's genetic. I mean, a lot of it is as a result of training as well, but I think that I had a pretty good starting place.
Well, I like that theory. I'll just blame it on genetics. Oh, it's easy. He was born that way. Well, up next, more with ultramarathon runner Dean Karnazes, and we'll be right back. We are back with Dean Karnazes, author of Ultramarathon Man: Confessions of an All-Night Runner. All right. Well, as I say, Dean, I'm gonna figure out how you do this today. Okay. So
some answers here.
We know. Okay, you got great genetics. You're in great shape. But what is your workout routine? What do you mentioned in the book? Like how many sit-ups do you do every day and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Well, I go into the gym as kind of the last resort. I mean, I prefer to cross-train by windsurfing, surfing, mountain biking, rock climbing. I mean, windsurfing for 2 hours is like doing lat pulls in a gym for 2 hours, and you're having fun doing it. But I have a routine where I do 200 push-ups morning, 200 in the evening. Yeah, sometimes with kids on my back, it helps, a little resistance.
I'm gonna remember next time I'm in the gym. I'm gonna be thinking this. Okay, so 200 push-ups a day.
Yeah.
And how many sit-ups?
About a little over 400.
400 sit-ups.
Yeah,
okay.
400 sit-ups. Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't ask. How many pull-ups?
I do 2 sets of 72. I do 2 sets of 36. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, but you do weights in addition, or you like to do the outdoor
No,
sports
as a
instead?
last resort, I'll go into a gym, but I prefer to do it all outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you probably have more fun that way.
Yeah,
And that's one thing I wanted to ask you because, one thing people will say to me, because I'm trying to bulk up a little, put on some muscle and take off a little fat, and but people say, oh, well, if you run too much, you're not going to put on muscle. But you say in the book, you actually have more upper body development, maybe because of the outside sports, more than most runners would have.
Yeah, well, having an upper body bulk is slow. It slows you down as a runner. It's just more weight to carry around. If you look at some elite runners, I mean, look at the Kenyans. I mean, there's very little bulk there at all. If you look at even elite cyclists, they typically have huge quadriceps and very developed legs and, nothing upstairs, really. I'm not going to quit windsurfing or surfing.
So it's good to know, but you don't have to. I mean, you can still do that. And
I think it helps with injury prevention. I mean, it might be a little bit slower, but, I don't get injured as much. And,
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, in these, it's not so much about the time. I mean, it is and it isn't. It's mostly just about getting through it, right? I mean,
I try to keep that perspective. I mean, although, these are the most elite runners from across the world that compete in some of these events, still to most of them, victory is defined as just crossing the finish line. I mean, they just want to make it, they want to live to see the finish line. So, and I think that's the beauty of the ultramarathon. I mean, most people in the marathon, they know they're going to reach the finish line. They're thinking maybe I'll crack 5 hours this time or 4 hours, but they know they're going to make it. With an ultramarathon, people are questioning.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, even you, at the high level you are, you didn't always finish every event. Like I think the Badwater the first time.
No, I've had some real breakdowns, if you will. Yeah, and it's it's not uncommon. I mean, DNF is a common word. Did not finish.
Wow.
And you see that about half the participants in most of these races DNF.
And you said at one point you were worried that might become like died and not finished.
Yeah, do nothing fatal. Yeah.
Well, while we're talking here, we're going to take a look at another video of Dean out on the trail running, and maybe you can tell us what you're doing here or where this is at. I thought this was really beautiful footage too.
Oh, that's up in Washington, Mount Olympus.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's an early morning sunrise. Actually, in the spring, there's still some snow on the ground, and that's a beach in Oregon. That's running through the Sierra there. That's running through the Sierra. That's by my house in San Francisco.
Oh, wow. So you really get around, too. That's one thing. You're covering a lot of ground, going a lot of places.
I've run on all 7 continents, so yeah. I mean, in my wildest dreams, I never thought running would take me to the places it has, but yeah, I've traveled the world over, and raced and competed and trained in all 7 continents. Yeah.
So, now what kind of training do you do before you start this? If you're going to have, let's say you're going to run the Badwater, I don't know, next week or next month or something, what additional stuff do you do to get ready for that? Or are you just always ready? I mean, do you have to?
No, I mean, I definitely ramp up the total mileage, so I start running further. And if I'm going to do the Badwater, you know, my training is a little bit different than if I'm going to do, say, the Western States 100-mile endurance run, which is through the mountains. So
A lot of up and down.
a lot of up and down. So I'll do more hill training, and I'll try to get up to the mountains once in a while because there's that elevation. For the Badwater, I live in San Francisco. We just don't get a lot of heat. And so I'll run around. Yeah, in a ski parka. I'll literally wear a ski parka, ski gloves, and go running in this stuff because it's the only way I can acclimate to the heat.
Somebody told me today that they knew somebody who did that, and and I think you say in the book too that people practice or train in the sauna for that. Is that
They
right?
do. In fact, last year I won the event, so I just say I survived the fastest. And the gentleman who came in second, he had a solarium built on the back of his house, and he put a treadmill in there. And that's how he trained. Yeah.
Wow. And now you said too, when you, technically the Badwater ends at the state park or the national park.
They call it the portals, the Whitney portals. It's the end of the road on the side of Mount Whitney.
And that's 135 miles to that point.
135 miles, and that's at about 8,600 feet, so it's quite a ways up on the mountain. Yeah.
But you didn't stop there.
No, I haven't before. Yeah, I mean, you take off your number because the official finish is at the portals, and they don't allow organized races in national parks, and it then enters national park zone. So you know, a number of us hike on up to the top of Mount Whitney, which
11 miles up, I think you said.
11 miles up. Yep, and you know, it's the highest point in the lower 48, so it's, you know, over 14,500 feet.
Wow. And then you have to come back down, as you said.
Yeah,
and
the downhill can be as tough as the uphill.
Wow. Now, the thing is, okay, now after the race, okay, so you've survived it. Well, I remember reading in the book about what happened after your the qualifying run, I think, for the Western States, where you, like,
Such a pretty outcome, yeah.
got in the car and just threw up everywhere,
Yep.
And were in agony, really, I think, rolling around in the car. But what kind of recovery? I think you said it takes something like, is it a week for every hour or every mile or whatever?
The old adage, was that you needed a week of recovery for every race mile. So if you ran a marathon, you would need 26 weeks of recovery, half a year, and that's why they said, you know, 2 marathons a year is kind of the limit. You know, last season I ran a number of 100-mile or farther races, and I calculated just in the last season alone, I mean, I should be recovering for 14 and a half years using the old adage. So
so do you actually recover then? I mean, or, you know, what happens? I mean, is your body, I guess you're just so adapted that you do recover, but on a much faster time
Much faster,
scale.
yep, much faster. I do a couple things. I mean, you know, as a practical tip, I force myself to go running the next day. So a lot of marathoners say, how do you recover so quick? I say, you know, I get out of bed the next morning. I shouldn't say run, I should say hobble. And I'll hobble a few miles. I think just getting your heart rate up and getting things cycling through kind of helps you recover. I also drink a lot of water throughout the day. Yeah.
Well, and that's why, again, as I say, this has just completely blown the top off of everything I've ever heard. You know, when people say to me, oh, you overtrain, you'll run too much, I just think, you know, what the hell are you talking about? I think, you know, there are guys out there running like 80 hours nonstop and stuff like that. So I guess it's almost impossible to overtrain in a way because, I mean, I realize if you have injuries or something, that's different, but...
I think the human body is a remarkable machine, and I don't think we give it credit. I think if anything, we underestimate what we can do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, have you had, I mean, to your knowledge, you've had no permanent damage or side effects or injuries or anything that you're aware of, obviously?
No, in fact, well, we talked about my biomarkers are all favorable, and my joints are actually holding tight, too. I mean, I have very good, I had some x-rays done. The doctor said, God, you have the joints of an 18-year-old.
Wow.
So far,
yeah,
so
because,
good.
see, again, that's the thing. People always say, you know, you'll kill your joints. You know, people tell me, oh, you run now, but when you're 80 years old, you know, you'll be crawling or something, you know. So... But that doesn't seem to be...
I would question that, yeah. I would really question that.
Well, good. I like that. You know, I never wanted to...
Yeah.
So, so you go running the very next day. But when do you feel fully recovered to the extent that you do feel fully recovered?
It takes weeks, if not months. I mean, you can feel like you've been in a train accident for 2 weeks prior or post-race. Sometimes this can be pretty bad. I mean, you can't walk upstairs. I take the elevator to my office on the 2nd story. You know, you feel kind of lame, but...
Well, you know, and one thing I wanted to say, when I was looking at the video that your publisher sent showing you out on the trail, you know, when you read the book, you talk about how hard it is and what you're going through mentally and like crawling and everything. but yet you looked like you were in great shape. When you came across that finish line, you were like smiling, and I don't know if that was for the camera or what, but you were smiling. You looked like you went out for a morning jog.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not diminishing what you did, but you didn't look like you were falling apart.
Maybe I didn't go fast enough. Is it? Yeah.
I don't know. Well, we'll be right back with Dean Karnazes, author of Ultramarathon Man: Confessions of an All-Night Runner. We are back with Dean Karnazes, author of Ultramarathon Man: Confessions of an All-Night Runner. Well, you know, I don't know if there's a Guinness Book of World Records for this thing or not, but I'm assuming you have to be at or near the top. But do you have any idea of where you rank? I mean, worldwide, I mean, how many people do this, and where do you stand?
You know, there's an estimate. There's 12 to 15,000 ultra runners in the U.S. Right. Most are running 50-mile races or maybe 100-kilometer races, which is 62 miles. You know, I would say a fraction of those are running 100 miles, and then I would say a very small percentage is running beyond 100 miles. Oh. You know, where do I rank? You know, I'm up there. It's you know, I'm close to the top. I think we're all a bit nuts, to be honest. So, you know.
I don't know how you'd top each other. Well, I think the one thing, though, you said, what next you've got to run, you want to run from Catalina to L.A., is that it?
Yeah, I want to do a run over water. And you probably
how does that work? How are you going to?
Well, there's a device I came across called the Hydrobronc. It was actually like an inflatable hamster wheel that was designed for ice rescue on frozen lakes. So if someone had broken through a frozen lake, you could get in this thing and kind of walk it out, and if the ice broke below you, you'd float over it and you could pluck the person out. And I saw this and I thought, man, that looks like you could run on water with this thing. So I contacted the inventor and we got together and put me out on the lake, and sure enough, yeah.
And the next thing I know, I'll be reading that you're like going across the Pacific Ocean on it or something. You know, they'll find you in Honolulu or Hong Kong.
I couldn't order pizza along the way, so it never worked. Yeah.
That's right, too. Yeah. And well, before I get into the food, well, actually, I do want to ask you about the food.
Sure.
You say at one point for the 200-mile relay, I think, you ate 28,000 calories for that run. In fact, you have a list of the food at the back of the book.
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks worth of food in 46 hours. So
wow.
Yeah.
And so, and you, as you said, you have the family pulls up beside you, hands you the pizza.
Yeah. Well, actually, I order the pizza sometimes. Yeah, but the family does hand me things out. You know, we usually have a camper van, and we, you know, it's a lifestyle thing. We have a fun weekend. I mean, it's a weekend of exercise. The kids get out and run with me for a while. They hand me food. You know, they spray me with squirt bottles, and
they even run with you some. And,
yeah,
and you really talk about how that's, you know, kind of brought your family together too.
It's been a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Because you might think, well, God, is he out running the whole time and he never sees anybody? But that's not really true. No. But as far as the food goes, though, and you did say in the book too about how you call Little Caesars or somebody, and they actually come out and find you in the middle of nowhere and deliver the food.
Pizza, yeah. Well, you tell them the corner you're going to be on, and you know.
But I wondered, though, with the food, because, okay, I think you said you're running holding the pizza, right? Or are they giving to you a slice at a time?
No, you hold the box. I mean, that's where good, you know, strong forearms help, yeah.
And the reason I'm wondering about this is I read somewhere that, like a flight attendant once, I don't know, she'd been fasting and then ate a lot of food, like 6,000 calories or something, and she died. She burst her stomach because she ate a lot of food in a small period of time. But apparently, and I'm thinking, you know, you're so lean, you have such low body fat, but that's not a danger eating this much food that quickly, even, you know.
You know, I've eaten an entire pizza, and 2 hours later I'm famished. So
wow.
I think your metabolism is just kicked into high gear. I mean, although
you must have one hell of a high metabolism. I wish this could almost get me to do it. 28,000 calories.
Yeah.
Pretty good stuff on the menu.
Well,
here.
you know, yeah, there's good stuff, but you're not tasting a lot of it. I mean, you're just trying to get down as much calories as you can. So it's not like you're enjoying it all that much.
And that's the thing you said. I mean, although in your everyday life you eat really well, really well. Too well for me.
I've got a health food company, yeah, so I kind of live by.
But yet, when you're on the run, though, you really have to eat every junk food you can find just because you've got to fuel your body to keep running.
Yeah, you need to eat highly refined, highly processed foods because anything with fiber, you don't want fiber. I mean, you want calories. You don't want bulk. You want as dense a calories as you can get. And, you know, natural foods have all the fiber left in them, so 28,000 calories worth of natural foods would be enough to bloat a rhinoceros. I mean, it'd be a huge volume of food. It'd blow up your stomach.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, it's amazing. I don't know how you do it, but yeah, and it's interesting too that you do everything when you're running, right? But that's another story.
Pretty much, yeah.
He just keeps on going,
next
folks.
Show, yeah.
Well, this is Dean Karnazes. The book is Ultramarathon Man: Confessions of an All-Night Runner. Thank you very much for being here today, Dean.
It's been a pleasure.
It's just mind-boggling, I'm telling you. But thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. We'll Thanks for being here.